everyone. Thanks for
Hello.
joining us today. We're diving into a very hot topic, Agentforce. As one of Salesforce's most exciting innovations, Agentforce, as they say, is supposed to change the way organizations equip their agents for both human and AI driven to deliver results, enhance customer experiences, and achieve real ROI. At Zenai, that's really what we care about, help our customers with ROI. But let's break it all down today. We have two legends here with us to help us demystify the latest and greatest from Salesforce. Hello, Paul and Robin. Look at us doing a podcast.
A long time coming.
This is the
Long
impact
time,
of
hi.
Agentforce. It got us all doing a podcast close to Christmas. We're very excited, aren't we? First, let's start with what is Agentforce?
For me, what what I feel Agentforce is really around how it allows for automation of the servicing of customer experiences. So essentially allowing agents to free up their time to have this AI agent be able to answer questions that typically would be from a customer or from a live agent, I should say.
I see it as it's the bridge of LLM technology with existing technology. You know, we've had chatbots for a long time, and we've been able to train them to do tasks and to follow almost scripts in how they service customers. By adding LLM technology, that's really just come out in the last few years with OpenAI, and now there's all of these companies building LLM technology. It's applying that into this existing technology of chat interfaces, and it's not just chat; it can be voice as well. But it allows, instead of having a very scripted, linear approach to talking to customers, it allows those chatbots to have more thoughtful conversations.
How is it smarter?
There's a concept called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. So if you think about the chatbot, the LLM, if you were to prompt ChatGPT with all of the information about the customer that you already know, it would give a much more thoughtful and relevant response. So it's basically like the CRM system that contains all of the customer information. It then can prompt in a very secure way. It prompts the chatbot with all of that information, so it can have a very relevant conversation. So it's like an informed, intelligent chatbot.
I feel it could be more around the thing is, I think with chatbot you're gonna talk to it and you're like, I would like to change my booking, and here's a link on how you can do that. Whereas the agent is going to be like, sure, what date are you looking for? So having more of that conversation with the person as if you are talking to a live person, and then being able to action it for you. So that's, I think, the powerful thing about agent, of course.
So if I were just to summarize that, chatbot gives you information. This Agentforce is now able to action things for you. Let's take a little step back. So, Robin, you talked about LLM and RAG. If you could just expound a little bit on those technology that make this really smarter.
Yeah, well, I think everyone knows what LLMs are because everyone's had a play with ChatGPT and similar tech. But basically, that is predicting the next letter and the next word. So it's always predicting, and for some reason, it's very accurate and it's getting smarter and smarter. RAG is more of a corporate business terminology. So the average consumer doesn't really need to concern themselves with RAG. For organizations, now they need to, if they want to leverage this LLM technology, they need to enable it with RAG. So that allows the LLM to be informed with almost like it's been prompted with all of that information. Like as a customer service agent, I'm dealing with Frank, who has a recent complaint, but he's a big spender, therefore provide him service that's relevant to him. So the RAG is the information about the customer informing the LLM, so the LLM can provide really good, useful information. I think that the hard part about RAG is doing it in a very secure way. because we can just API into an OpenAI API, but you're also, if you give it that customer information, you're also training the LLM on your customer data, and there's no guarantee of where that's going or how secure it is. So Agentforce uses RAG, but it does so in a very secure way where it doesn't actually send any of the data across to train the agent. It's more I guess tokenized so that it works for the prompt and for that point in time, but it doesn't store that information. It's same as how Apple have Apple Intelligence now, where they commit not to pass any of your data across, but they're still leveraging the LLM. Traditional chatbot, it can action, but you have to program it to do that. So the old chatbots, you could say, update my order, update my delivery address, but you'd have to kind of almost hard code the process of doing that, including authenticating the customer, and it gets unstuck very quickly. Using an LLM, it can have a much more guided conversation where it's like, well, if they haven't provided an email address, ask them to provide their email address. Ask them to provide their city. If they haven't done that, then ask them again, So it allows a very, I guess, flowing conversation with a unique customer.
I mean, it basically is to help companies retrieve, and use their data in a better generative AI. So, giving them better results.
Right. So we talk a lot about data, right? Where is that data coming from?
Usually it's from the customer's or the organization's CRM database.
Yeah. So if we were to break it down, right, there are a lot of sources of data, right? You've got all of your data from your customer service, your CRM, your e-commerce site, if you have the data warehouse, you've got all of these data in legacy systems coming from different sources. So you bring that together. So the RAG, LLM and RAG works together for you to be able to provide the specific action that you wanted to do for customers. Is that sort of how it works?
Yeah, and I think Salesforce have really architected it's a great model, the way they've brought Data Cloud together with CRM. Data Cloud it's a bridge. It's effectively a CDP that allows you to ground your customer data. So if I've got multiple duplicate customer records in my CRM, it can be challenging to then automate an agentic response, because the agent also doesn't know which one is the correct record. So it grounds that data around a federated ID, which allows the agent to have a trusted and correct conversation. Data Cloud is also a bridge to all of the other enterprise data. So if you've got a data warehouse or a data lake that has a lot of unstructured data in it, you can bring that into Data Cloud, match it with a customer so that you can then get more informed information about their order history or their purchase history and payments. So that really informs the agent, very similar to providing it to a customer service agent in the CRM view, so the customer service agent can provide good services. It's the same concept.
I think also, it's not only the RAG, it's very helpful in utilizing all the data sources, but more importantly, what the prompts that you're giving for them to provide the right results that you're after.
So let's delve deeper into that technology later and talk about the different types of, the steps we need to take. But for now, I want to understand first if you could provide specific industry use cases. For example, for travel and hospitality, how are they able to leverage this? If you could share, all the specific use cases for travel and hospitality.
One really good example, it's very straightforward, is an airline. So if you think about an airline that travels around the world, they have to provide multilingual support. So they may have someone that only speaks Chinese that needs to interact with that airline, and they may need to do so 24/7. For most airlines, they have 24/7 contact centers with bilingual speakers. So they have to make sure they've got, if it's 24/7, that's generally 3 shifts a day. So you've got to have a Chinese speaker 3 shifts a day, and then also redundancy in case the person is sick one day, so, and think they've got to have Arabic, they've got to have Chinese, there's multiple types of Chinese, they've got to speak Bahasa, all of these languages, and that adds a huge amount of overhead to running the contact center operation. So by having an LLM that does already speak all of these languages fluently, it can provide 80% of the calls a call center may get. It can provide support to those people without having that massive overhead of having those bilingual customer service agents on hand all the time. And then you can have a much lighter load in that cost in terms of, I do have someone that speaks Chinese. They do need to speak to a human. I can escalate. So you get less bottlenecks in terms of those resources where you have less numbers of them.
What about from a sales and marketing perspective? How does a travel and hospitality able to leverage this?
I mean, I think you start off really with, obviously language is also a good example, but also, people wanting to change their flights, change their bookings and things like that. In that time, you can have this AI agent actually upgrading them or upselling them into, other things, asking them about the auxiliaries they might be needing to bring on the flight, that maybe that people don't even know that they can. So it is a good opportunity for them to do that and to help them through that process just through an AI agent rather than have a live agent trying to do all that. And as long as you have the data of that person that maybe they previously flowing in certain places, then that AI agent can actually start recommending things through that. Like if you were to go to Fiji, some of these, you can get Fiji package holidays, and they could say, well, where are you staying? We have this great promotion going right now with this package deal. So all of a sudden, the person went just to get a flight, but now it's got a package deal, which is, obviously going to increase the ROI for the airline.
But that's the beauty of it, right? It's just about programming it and providing that data. And it obviously an human agent would have limitation in terms of what they can memorize as far as all of the promotions in different countries, right? But what that example is just spot on in terms of these are all of the promotions that we have globally, and you match it, using all of the LLM and the RAG, you match it, then it just becomes programmed and it's an upsell, right?
And it's usually different teams that do different functions. When it's humans, usually there's a reservations team that are just doing ticket booking, and they may be able to upsell ancillary services, but it's not their job to do a travel holiday booking. They would have to pass it over to a different team. Or it could be that I take a booking, but at the same time, they've got a customer service complaint. And usually if it's reservations team, they'll be like, oh no, you have to speak to customer service department. And it just creates a lot more friction for the customer because they've got to speak to a different person, repeat the same information. Whereas if you train an Agentforce agent to do those jobs, they can do it all in one breath. And as Paul mentioned, they can predict if a customer is likely to take an offer and upsell them way more effectively.
Let's talk about public sector. What are the specific use cases for public sector?
I think public sector with regards to, there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of things to be able to read that you need to know when you're talking to the public sector. I think, just answering some of those questions, because there's so much information out there that, people probably won't even understand. So go to an AI agent that could answer those questions or direct them into the right location to find that information. I think it's really where public sector will see the advantages of AI.
For me, I really don't like my tax dollars being spent on a lot of humans doing menial tasks. I'd much rather my tax dollars went to somewhere impactful than to large contact centers. So for me, it's a cost-saving benefit is, if you have all of these like small repetitive questions like how do I get a new driver's license, or my driver's license has expired, what should I do next? Those kind of questions can be handled by a chatbot at scale.
I'm not sure about you guys, but I've sat on a phone call sometimes for half an hour just waiting to get some resolution. Whereas if I would have spoken to an AI agent to be able to get things answered for me and processed and actually actioned, I'd be much happier. And I wouldn't need to be sitting on the phone for hours just waiting for them to answer me.
A lot of people have a perception that to get great customer service, I'd prefer to speak to a human over this. But when you're going through Coles and you've got an option between a queue for a teller that's going to transact with you, and you've got to put it on the checkout, versus a robot teller that you can just do it yourself, scan your own things, and walk out immediately. 9 times out of 10, I'd go for the bot because I just don't want to go through that process. It's a bit slower. I don't need to say, hi, how are you? How's your day going? I don't need that conversation in my life. I'm just in and out. And I feel it's the same way for government services. Like to Paul's point, that 30-minute queue, I'd much rather immediately talk to someone, immediately have my question answered, and then get out than speak to a human, and humans are inconsistent. You may speak to one human and get a different experience to another, and I'd much rather just the correct level of service.
But just to add on that, I think that that we would love that, and I think where the AI agent comes into it helps us get those answers that we need. But the great thing is that anything more complex that we want to speak to a human, we can actually get the AI agent to transfer it. And then it allows that live agent to have all the background information to that, to be able to then process and continue with the conversation much quicker than it would be if someone was trying to transfer one person to the next. So I don't think humans, we still want to have those human touches with us. So yeah, their option is just like Woolies, you've got the option of going to human or not. So
yeah, I think it's important to have that option. Right? If it's available, like go speak to a human, go speak to an agent AI, agentic AI. But let's focus on specific use cases, right? I'm really interested to hear, for example, for finance. Can you specifically share, like how can an insurance or a bank or a mortgage broker, how can they use this?
With most financial services, there's usually an application process. So if I'm applying for a loan or applying for insurance or applying for a novated lease, for example, I have to go through quite a complex application process, and my success of that application is really dependent on the information I provide. Some of that information is very hard, so it may ask for historical transactional information or proof of ID, things like that. And the conversion rate of that application is often based on that person knowing how to complete it. So, a good organization with people behind it will contact the person as they're going through the application and talk them through it and assist them. But they don't always need to, and it's also a very sensitive personal process. So some people may actually prefer to have a very intelligent chatbot help them through that process so they get the best outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, the information that it would have based on maybe even certain criteria of that person that fit other segments in their database may help them with completion of some of those documents. Like you live in this area, you work in this type of industry, things like that could then say, okay, it can start collecting that data to say, okay, your next step would be this based on that. Or it could quickly identify whether that person would be a person who would be able to get the financial loan or not, or be able to provide some other alternatives. So it's a much quicker process, I feel, in also getting to that point when a person's going to feel like, I just need to know whether I can or can't, because these days it's like, if I go through this whole process, I've just wasted like months of trying to get through it, and then all of a sudden I'm not eligible. So I think the AI can certainly hurry those things along.
There are considerations, especially in financial services, with AI-powered processes. If you have, say, an AI that is responsible for the approval on an application or a claim, it may be that there's bias in that. So I think organizations need to be very careful around how they prevent bias from those. They may bias against gender or bias against race based on historical data. The AI doesn't necessarily it doesn't discriminate, but it does discriminate based on data. So it can be quite dangerous. We saw, the scandal of robo-debt that was run by the government, which was a huge example of where there was a massive impact of that. I wouldn't say it was AI, but it was a robotic automation that really discriminated against a lot of people and caused a lot of damage.
What about healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you've got patient data. If I can access it and I can speak about, maybe my results, it's all real time there. So I don't have to wait for the doctor to come and see a doctor. I just actually saw on the news last night that they are working on a holistic system that allows us to see what our blood results are and everything like that. So if we have the AI agent in front of that, I can actually just talk to and say, how are my blood results? Point me some of the things that I should be aware of before I go talk to the doctor. It doesn't mean I shouldn't go talk to the doctor, but some of the things that it can give me to prepare myself.
Yeah, this is actually an industry that would create so much value because it's so ripe for disruption. Like that example alone that you talked about, Paul, imagine just having that information at your fingertips, and the costs as well, right? Like just to tell you what are the things that you can improve with your health based on your blood test result. And it's a holistic, that word alone, holistic, rather than a GP telling you 10 words. These are the results. Okay, off you go, right? Imagine if this is like the view from a naturopath. This is a view from an oncology. This is a view from, these are the ways, holistic ways that you can improve your health based on your blood test. It'd be unbelievable. That's unbelievable value to the patients, to us as humans.
And I think it really democratizes the skill of that knowledge that the doctor has. And the exact same example is I went to go get a blood test with the doctor, and I spoke to the doctor and I was like, tell me about the results. He's like, you're fine. And that was all. And I was like, oh, can I have the result? And he gave me the result, and then I plugged the data into ChatGPT, and it explained everything. It said you're within the normal tolerances for your hemoglobins, and it was the same outcome. I'm like, yeah, okay, he was correct. I am fine. I really wanted to know the detail behind it, and he just doesn't have time to tell me that.
Or you could have more time with him, but it's going to cost you so much money when the information can easily just be provided by an agent. That blows my mind. And just think about like all of the diseases that can be avoided, just because we have the information. I don't think we'll be able to cover that in one podcast, and I'm sure that there are broader minds, like the geniuses of the world, are trying, hopefully, to really extract the value of AI in this field.
I do think that healthcare is a really good example of where there's fear around data security, because if I'm giving access to a chatbot, if I'm talking to a chatbot about my personal things, there's such a big fear of data breaches, as there should be, because there's been so many of them. And that's where Salesforce they've really got a good play, because the way they've structured their interactions with LLM is very secure. It's already, all of the data is stored in Salesforce platform. So Agentforce is like an add-on. It's not a database on its own, but it leverages the existing security that Salesforce provides. So they provide local data centers in Australia, so data residency is covered. It also, if you are actioning anything outside of Salesforce, it leverages the existing platform security around API integration. So you may be leveraging a MuleSoft to action in other patient systems based on those interactions. So all of the security that is required is already existing in Salesforce, and Agentforce is really just an interface to that.
And it also reduces the bias because you know that the data is based on what you have, right? It's not just coming from different sources of information. Because I don't know if I'm sure everyone's experiences. Sometimes ChatGPT lies, right? It just gives you some, I don't know where the answers come from. But that's the beauty of having a very secure sources of data. Because like a lot of companies are probably thinking AI can come from everywhere, right? So they sort of like put it all together. Like this is my CRM AI, this is my e-commerce AI, like even Messenger and Facebook and WhatsApp all have AI, but it's just not in terms of the how you can trust where it's coming from. That's where the issues come from. So that's a good point that you raised about the security of Salesforce and having really not BYO, like build your own, right? That's the value of it.
In Salesforce, it's not just plugging in OpenAI to Salesforce and there you go. Salesforce have added value to that equation with a reasoning engine. It actually does think about what it's thinking about rather than providing just a basic prediction of the next letter in the sentence. It does consider its response before responding. So it's more than just a connector with OpenAI. It's its own IP.
Let's talk about implementation. What do companies need to do to prepare if they want to implement Agentforce? What are the things that they need to do?
I mean, I think that a lot of the companies already have things that they can utilize straight off the bat with regards to knowledge articles. Yeah. So, if they already have those knowledge articles published, chat or Agentforce AI can actually start utilizing those and start providing more of a conversation-based sort of chat with the person instead of it being, I guess, rigid with regards to, okay, here's the information. Like if you think about an agent AI, it would be saying, if you're like, what are my store, where are the store locations and what are their trading hours? Which store are you looking for? That's more of a conversation-based rather than it being, here are all our stores. So I think, that's where a lot of companies can start with knowledge base. I mean, they need to assess what their business goals, the data sources and systems they want to integrate, really assess their readiness to make sure that they have everything in place that will feed the agent in order to provide the results they're looking for. I guess stakeholder alignment.
Just based on our conversation today, it seems like you need to have your data discipline in place, right? As far as how clean that is, like what data you can extract, what actions can you extract out of it. With those actions, you need to have process, right? But from what you're talking about, Paul, it seems like a low-hanging fruit for them to start, like an MVP implementation, is knowledge articles. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a level one. Yeah, level one. It's the most easiest one to utilize.
Yeah, because based on implementation, that's what we need to figure out. What are the questions it can answer? Do we have the answers to those questions? What are the prompts, right? In order for us to be able to successfully respond to whatever questions, because obviously if it's a consumer facing company, they're going to have millions of ways that they're going to ask those questions. We need to be able to ensure that those questions are answered correctly. And, how does it allow the process internally for that to have a good experience for the customer?
I see the preparedness for agentic AI is kind of turtle and hare. So if I'm just trying to get to the end state, which is full agentic, I can fully service a customer with everything a customer service agent would do. It's very risky, and often organizations don't have everything they need prepared. So they don't have a single customer view. They don't have the ability to automate actions in upstream or downstream systems. They don't have a strong, safe, data secure platform. So, if you try to be the hare and go very fast, you may come off the rails somewhere. Issues happen. if I just start as a tortoise and just chip away at it, 1 foot at a time, and start with, say, knowledge summarization, that's a great place, because I don't need to have everything figured out in the back end first. I just need a knowledge article written down. The game with agents is really cumulative. So you start them today with knowledge summarization, and then tomorrow maybe you'll teach them how to authenticate a customer, which you need to do in order to provide any of their customer data through that interface. And then maybe you'll enable them with one action, which is give me my account balance. And then another action, which is update customer address. Another action, which is reorder a product I regularly buy. Each of those have a different level of maturity required in the systems and the technology behind the agent, that most organizations don't have today. And that's why they need humans that kind of plug the gaps. They need to maybe escalate to different teams that do have access. So unless you've figured that out, it's very hard to be the hare and get to the end of the race. And what we see is organizations, they don't want to do it because they're not ready. So they're kind of like the hare, that it's like, oh, I can go have a chill by the tree. I'll never lose to the tortoise. But if you're the tortoise and you make one small step, the benefit's going to be cumulative, and your maturity and being able to train that agent is going to increase over time.
So your advice is go slow and go fast at the same time.
Go slow and go steady. But don't not start. Like, don't wait to get on the bandwagon. If you wait until end of next year because you're like, I don't trust the tech, or we're not ready with our data, then you're going to start that race at the end of the year. Whereas your competitors, they've already been chipping away at those use cases. The more you train the agent, the more powerful it is. But when you first set it up, it's not going to be very powerful. It's going to be pretty basic.
So jump in, and start learning. Yeah, even if things are still chaotic, things are, because that's what prepares you anyway, right? You start to learn if you're in the game. Yeah, I like that. That's good advice. Let's talk about ROI. So, and Paul, you've mentioned this, like alignment of stakeholders, right? I think the good thing about AI is it's top of mind for a lot of business leaders. I think that I don't know if you agree with this, but for the first time, this is coming from the top down, right? With social media, it's sort of like came at the middle. The I guess the millennials, or the middle managers were pushing for social media, for digital, but this one is coming from top down. Obviously, if you're talking to executives, it's usually always like, what is the value to the business? So it's important to really establish ROI even from the beginning, even as you're learning. So what metrics should businesses track to measure, or even sort of like in the beginning, what can they expect to see ROI from?
I think with productivity, if you think about that one, first and foremost, I mean, you've got actual live humans going and talking and responding, whereas if you had AI, the productivity and time to respond to them is going to be much more efficient. So leaving the live agents to deal with those more complex. So again, where I was saying earlier, where people aren't waiting on a queue for hours on end to be able to just answer a simple question. I'm now, if I do get to speak to a live, it's because I've already gone through everything else as part of that process. So I think there is seeing a lot more ROI with regards to the time it's taken for people to resolve things versus the routine tasks.
Yeah, so reduction from cost to serve, reduction in terms of cost to serve and cost to sell. Do you think that's something that we can expect from the get-go if you're just doing like the learning and you're doing it on a slow pace, you're doing it with MVP implementation? Is it realistic to expect that from initial implementation?
I mean, I think so. I mean, if you think about it, you need to be able to try to measure the time it takes to resolve someone's case and how many people are calling or trying to get through. I see a lot of surveys today. Did you call us or did you go through our chat? I think if we start looking at those percentages and start seeing they see the cost savings straight away, whereas a lot more people would have gone through the chat, and then a lot more of the time saved is actually a cost reduction that could be seen straight away.
Yeah, there's quite a you can really calculate the cost to serve. Like you can say, I've got 10 staff in my customer service team and I answer 1,000 cases per month. So you can look at the cost of that labor and the cost per case by dividing the cases by the cost. So it's very easy to see the cost per case. I think typically for an Australian-based contact center, it's something like $15 per case on average. So that's quite high. With Agentforce, it's more like $2 per interaction. So they call it a conversation. It's a 24-hour conversation with one unique individual. So it's really for them to go back and forth. May still have to be escalated sometimes, but hopefully most of them can be resolved by the chatbot alone. So you can really start to quantify, if I had 1,000 cases a month before that are answered by humans at $15 a case, now I've got 700 cases answered by humans, 300 are answered by a chatbot at $2 per case. So you can really see the difference. It's the same with customer acquisition. So if you think about salespeople, you've got a customer acquisition cost, your CAC, and that's really how many new customers did I acquire and what was the cost of the marketing and the sales to bring those people in. And you've got salespeople. So the cost of your team and the cost of the marketing divided by the number of customers that you bring in. If you can increase the customers that come into the business without having to increase the sales team, then you're going to have a lower cost per acquisition. So there's a few different ends to it, but it's very easy to calculate the cost difference. I think if you're a board director, you see the costs of payroll in your P&L every month, and it's a massive cost. And you also know that it's a variable cost in the sense that if I want to acquire more customers, I need more salespeople. If I want to then service more customers, I need more customer service agents. So my payroll cost is always going to go up. Whereas with AI, the promise is that I should be able to keep the same payroll, but I should be able to increase the customers.
The economies of scale is limitless over a period of time. So as it learns and learns and learns, like that's where you really see the reduction of costs when it comes to efficiencies. And we're just talking about specifically about cost to serve. But imagine if it becomes like a top salesperson, like as far as just learning everything about your business, right?
Technology is changing so rapidly as well. Like we went 2 years ago was ChatGPT 3, and that was very basic, but everyone was amazed by it. Now with ChatGPT, you've got the voice conversation where I can talk to it as if it's another human. It's going to be a minute before organizations have the same power. Everything goes to corporate where the money is eventually. So it's going to be very soon before I'm video interacting with a bot that feels like a human interaction.
That's already happening. I mean, we've heard that already when we all saw the demo with the world tours. That conversation is very seamless and very human, and we're seeing all of these like videos, like models. There are a lot of models now that are not even real people, right? And it's just a matter of applying those technology that's already available.
I can have OpenAI for my very complex interactions, but I may use a cheaper LLM for image recognition, that's a lot more efficient. So it allows you to use different LLMs for different purposes. And it also leverages the strength of the platform as well. So we've got the existing security of Salesforce, but we're leveraging the power of OpenAI or any other platforms like Claude, for example. And they have their own strengths and weaknesses. So I actually really like the strategy that Salesforce has taken. I feel like it's happened so quickly, and now we've got access to it, and it was almost immediate. Within a year or so of LLMs coming out, there's now a play with Salesforce, and it's just going to keep going at the same pace as the LLM ecosystem.
I really like that. It's very smart. It's exactly what Elon Musk did with Tesla. He democratized the technology, so that everyone's able to really like build on top of it and just become stronger and stronger. And now EV's like just widely accepted, and the market share is just like grown astronomically because he thought that if he democratizes the data, like his competitors will use it, and he'll benefit from it as well. So I love that. That's just sort of like the new thing that smart people do now. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone right now? Just like a very quick, snappy advice as we close this podcast.
I think really start really seriously considering it. Start with a clear vision of what your goals are, and how this agent may be able to help with those goals and make you hit those KPIs. I really think that we can't ignore AI. It's something that's definitely going to help and improve customer experiences. More and more people are willing and wanting to talk to automation AI agents, or chatbots, to get the information so they can be out on their way much quicker. So really think about that, and think about how AI will impact your business, from as little as providing some knowledge on what their account looks like, to helping them transact on things. So yeah, that would be my advice.
I would suggest that organizations, they get their data and their systems up to scratch with modern technology. A lot of organizations, they use humans as the sellotape that glues their systems together, and are effectively acting like a middleware, swivel chairing between systems and filling in the gaps. That if you add Agentforce or an AI interface to that mess, it can't go very far. You'll get stuck at knowledge summarization. You won't be able to automate actions or empower the chatbot to do more. So I would really encourage organizations to become AI ready. And that just means having a single customer view, modern, secure technology that talks to each other, so that you can then empower that AI. But also don't wait, start.
I'm the same. For me, be in the game, do a little bit, start the conversation, keep progressing with it. I really like your advice about, steady and slow, but be in the game. No, make mistakes, be open to making mistakes, and, just learn as fast as you can as well. But keep going, don't stop, because this is really going to change the world, and you can't get left behind. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys. And yeah, I hope you learned from our first podcast about Agentforce. We'll have a few more. We'll have a lot more. And have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.